All right, Krishna, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today I'm taking a question about pets. I got a really good question from someone that I thought would make for kind of like a fun Q&A, and it goes like this. Um, First, the most important issue for me at the moment is about animals. You see, my almost 17-year-old cat died on Monday, the 13th of July. The sadness in my heart is unspeakable. I'm just so sad. Well, first of all, my heart goes out to you. I had a dog of the past, I guess it was in 2016, 17, something like that. Yeah, and it's rough. So yeah, my animals are soul companions oftentimes, and so I can't. Yeah, I can only imagine how tough that must be. I've lost animals before, and it's a heartbreaking experience every time. But I've never lost this long relationship. And this cat was sickly throughout its life and needed special daily care. So I got used to nursing this lovely creature. It really was time for him to go, that I understand, but I miss him so. I'd like to know, what does Bhakti teach about souls of animals? Do they reincarnate as human souls? Are they the same as human souls? Can animal souls become human souls or vice versa? Do souls reunite, humans and or animals? Do we get to meet the ones we have lost, people or animals? Are individual souls always separate, or is it possible for two souls to become one? Do souls always move on right away after the body has died, or is it possible that a soul stays around? Do we live multiple lives with same family, friends, or pets? These must be questions you get a lot when people are grieving. What does Bhakti teach or guide about sorrow and grieving, how to let go in such times? Those are a lot of questions. So I'm just going to kind of go through them and try to give simple answers the best I've understood according to what my gurus have said and to what I understand from scripture thus far. As always, if there are bhaktas in the audience who know more than I do, please feel free to comment, put your chat or reflections into the comment section. I'd really appreciate that extra support. All souls, called sometimes the word jiva is used to refer to souls. And all souls in this material universe that we are a part of are essentially the same, meaning that they're all, like, you could think of sparks to the fire, rays of light to the sun. So we're all, as like little atomic jivas, we're all conscious entities. We're all completely unique in that we each have our own unique identity. But yeah, we're all one in the sense that we are all of the same category of energy. We are, as individual beings, we also comprise a sense of sameness as a part of God. So the jivas constitute one of God's shaktis or energies. So living beings like you, me, cats, dogs, trees, anything in this material universe that is a conscious being is an ensouled jiva. And the whole jiva tattva is an energy of God. So there's a sense, for example, in which, as a city or a community or a family or a globe or a planet, that we share this commonality. We're all, God's children, so to speak. But there's also a way in which we are each completely and totally and utterly unique as spirit souls, regardless even of what forms we inhabit, whether I'm a dolphin or a human, whether I'm a tree or a bumblebee. So in that sense, it's not like there's an animal soul and there's a human soul. There's just souls. There's just ensouled beings that are all part of this energy of God. So that's the first thing, as far as I understand it. And there in the scriptures, it says that these are ancient scriptures, say there's 8,400,000 different species of life. Where that number comes from, I have no idea. But it's interesting just to get a sense of the vastness of it, right? Which is this idea that, we come here to experience what it's like to be individual enjoyers. What does it look like or feel like to enjoy being alive and experiencing self-gratification in the body of a bird or a pig or, a tree or a human or whatever else? And so this universe is created with all of these incredibly unique different kinds of forms of life that the jivas, which are all essentially the same in terms of all being ensouled individual beings, come into and out of, and we transmigrate from one form to the next. So, you can take birth as a deer, you can take birth as a cow, you could take birth as a human, you could take birth as something else. So they're all the same in that sense. The forms that we incarnate in are different, but the souls moving through all are the same in that sense. Now, again, at the same exact time, every soul is also individual and unique. It's like saying we're all humans, but we're all individuals at the exact same time. We're all souls. We all take on different forms, and we all each have our own specific soul form that's very unique. And we can't wake up to what that soul form is without forming a relationship with God, with Krishna, because it's only through an active, ongoing, unfolding, evolving relationship with our source that we come to understand who we really are and start to see our eternal spiritual form, which is being covered over as we kind of experiment and go through all of these different material forms, right? So that's part of what Bhakti says happens as we're waking up, is that we come to understand who we really are as a spiritual being in our eternal form. It's basically like saying, you're like my body, my atom body, or my acyuta body, right? These are coverings, and I've had many other bodies, and I've been trying things on, trying to figure out who I am, what feels right, etc. Well, it turns out that nothing feels right, and I don't come home to what I really am as an individual soul until I start in investing in, absorbing myself in relationship to Krishna, to God. So that's part of the answer there. Do souls reunite, humans and or animals? Well, think about it like this. There's an ancient text called the Hermetica, and there's this image in that text, which is that in heaven, all souls are part of like a great choir. And so they're all singing together, but they all each also have their own unique voice in the choir. You've maybe heard that song when I was a Christian, growing up in church. It was all God's critters got a place in the choir. Heard that song before? Some sing low, some sing higher. Okay, so it's like that. That's the best way that I've heard it explained. I actually asked my guru this once while we were in India, and he said, in Vrindavan, which is in Bhakti literature, Vrindavan is sort of a picture of heaven. The blades of grass, the trees, the beings, the animals, everything in that place has its unique way of participating in this kind of beautiful connection with God, with Krishna, who lives there. So you can imagine it's almost like God's got a small town in the country that he lives in and likes to hang out with his friends, and every single part of that world is coordinating into the most inherently blissful and beautiful experience ever. And but in that sense, we are all united in that experience, in that heavenly experience. So when we, for example, in Bhakti, we sing kirtan. We do call and response chanting. So, someone says Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Then everyone chants back, right? So there's a call and response, and everyone's voices join together. So yeah, in Bhakti, we say that all souls, when they are yoked, yoga means to yoke, when they are yoked to God in love and devotion and service, they also come together with each other, because everyone that is loving God is basically participating in the choir of love of God, or of love for God, and God is right there singing back with that choir. So yeah. Do we get to meet again the ones we have lost, people or animals? Yeah, of course. All things are brought together. All wounds are healed. All divisions are reunited. All beautiful souls come together in love of God. Are individual souls always separate, or is it possible for two souls to become one? Well, in Bhakti, the general idea that I've seen everywhere, I've never seen anything different, is that we don't really want to become one with anything, because to do that is to lose our individuality. And love requires that there be some degree of separation. The lover and the beloved can sink into infinite layers of romantic, intimate union with one another insofar as they also are able to remain independent. So it takes two to tango. That's the idea. And the tango is this beautiful dance that requires two people to not merge together. There's a merging, but it requires a tension of separation at the same time. So there's not a theory of merging with others in that regard. There's a sense of merging while always being separate at the same time. Just like, when you're in love when you're 16 or something like that, and you're holding the hand of someone that you love, it's like you feel like you're just melding together. But there's a way in which the feeling of that melding is dependent upon the fact that you're also separate. So we don't fully merge in that sense. Do souls always move on right after the body has died, or is it possible that a soul stays around? Well, there's a lot of literature on this, and generally speaking, the main thing that I've heard my gurus say, that the simplest thing that I can think of to respond to that is just to say that, Krishna, God, in consort with the gods, the planets, and cosmic law, karmic law, administrate over and ferry the soul to its next destination. And what's incredibly important is that what is on the mind or in the consciousness of the being as it's passing over be God, because what is left on our mind at the moment of death has a very strong. It's like it's like the direction that the rudder is pointing the boat at the time that the soul is leaving the body matters a great deal, and that's dependent upon what's on our minds, what's in our hearts, what is dwelling in our consciousness, which is why sadhana in bhakti is so important, because if we chant and tend to our altars and spend time in community with other people who are devoted to God and so forth, then one of the things that happens is that our ship is pointed in the direction of God, in the direction of going home. So when we leave the body, we take the next step in that way. So that's what we're preparing ourselves for, because we know that, that's what my guru says, you need like 100, some people have a 10-year plan, and some people have not even a 1-year plan. We need like a 100-year, 500-year plan, a 1,000-year plan. We need to think about, in other words, lifetimes, what's coming after I leave this body. And what comes next is dependent upon, what occupies our mind now. And yeah, there are different spheres where souls can reincarnate, and there are spheres where, sometimes, people will, all different kinds of forms, and some more disembodied than others. And so there's a lot of different forms of life in the universe. Some, there's definitely the presence of things like ghosts in the scriptures and things like that. So yeah, we want to be the main thing is not to get so obsessed or attached to what comes next and the details of it, but just knowing that we trust where we're going at all times when we're putting our lives into the hands of God. And we do that not just intellectually, but every day through action, through activity, through service, through chanting, through all the different practices of bhakti. Do we live multiple lives with same family or friends or pets? Well, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, but we're creatures of habit. So we are in the kind of circumstances we're in this lifetime because we've been doing it before, or because it's suited to the kinds of complex web of behaviors and needs and desires and maybe karma that we're receiving based on previous actions. So it's possible that we reincarnate according to ancestral, there's ancestral karma. There's all sorts of karma. It's very mysterious, and probably less important that we pay attention to that and try to figure it all out, which is the equivalent in some ways of seeing there's an arrow in your leg and being like, where did the arrow come from? Who shot it at me? And instead being like, I need some medical attention, right? So the medical attention, the actual medicine is the mantra. The medicine is every day just focusing on love of God and cultivating it. And then over time, as we do that, we may be illuminated from within with certain understandings about karma, what have you. But the main, as my guru says, the main thing is to keep the main thing. So, and that's our especially our daily sadhana, our daily practice. If you haven't yet, check out the videos that I've done on easy practices of surrender including mantra meditation, and check out the Bhakti community, which is a webpage where you can go and basically start cultivating Bhakti community and Bhakti practices. And what does Bhakti teach or guide about sorrow and grieving and how to let go? Well, there's an interesting story that I'll close with. There was, and I think it was Bharat Maharaj, he's a character in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a classic Bhakti yoga text. And in this story, he is meditating basically in samadhi near a river. And there's a pregnant deer in the river. And there's a lion that comes by or roars or something like that, and the deer freaks out, and the deer is pregnant and gives birth to this little baby in the river, and then dies of shock or fear or something like that. So here's this yogi meditating there, and then he sees this deer helpless in the water, this little baby. So he takes it out and he cares for it, which is a good yogic thing to do, to show compassion and care for other living souls. Like Jesus said, love God, that's the number one thing, but number two, love others. So if we're loving God and we don't have compassion for others, we're not really loving God, because we're failing to see God in other things. That's the problem, right? So he did a good yogic thing to help this little baby deer. But then what happened was he started getting attached to the deer. And so the deer starts occupying like everything that he does. It's almost like he becomes so fanatically obsessed with caring for the deer and loving on the deer and hanging out with his dear friend, that eventually it basically throws him off his yogic path. And when he's dying, he's thinking of the deer. And so he incarnates in his next lifetime as a deer. But in this new lifetime as a deer, he happens to be born with full memory of his yogic life and what had happened to him and why and how he became a deer. And so what he does for this lifetime is he lives basically in the shade and shelter of the ashram in which he had belonged to prior to meeting the deer and then dying and becoming a deer. And by virtue of having to meditate upon how his focus had been taken away, which started with compassion and care, which is totally legitimate, had devolved into attachment. And so we always have to be really careful, right? That we hold our relations in this world with care and love, but that we hold them lightly because we understand that everything is in God's hands, that it's not ultimately everything's well-being is being cared for by the most benevolent, caring, mothering being in creation, right? And that we do our part to serve and to help others, but we hold things lightly because we know that people come and go. We know that beings come into form and out of form. It doesn't make us callous or cold. It doesn't mean we turn our back on people because they're going to die someday anyway. It's not like that, but it's just saying there's a difference between caring for something and like whether you're a parent or a pet owner or whatever you are, and knowing, as you said in your post, that you were a caretaker for this cat, and that the cat had special needs that your karma was aligned with to be a caretaker for. And now it was, as you said, it really was time for him to go. That I understand, but I miss him so. So the main thing is that that's all human. You should grieve, you should miss, because he's a living being. And that little God nature in there that you got to share some time and space with, what an amazing gift, right? That gift came from God. So the other thing is to just trust that the parting was also divine and to not become overly attached. So grieving is okay. Sorrow and grieving is good and healthy. It shows that we are connected personally to other living beings, which means to God as well. But also making sure that we're careful to let go so that we don't get into that complicated stage of grieving where there may be some form of codependency or attachment is there that can actually distract us. That's the broad, and everyone grieves at different stages and different ways and for different lengths of time. So I'm not trying to say what's healthy and what's not, but that's a good story from the scriptures to kind of illustrate how we should deal with grieving, I think. All right. So I hope that this was helpful. Thank you for your question. Yeah, it was fun to talk about pets, the souls of our pets. It's like, look at your pet. We'll look at an ant, look at a mosquito, even, and go like, that's a person, right? That's a person. Even people say my dog is a person. Well, that's actually true. That's the name for, basically all jivas are people, and God is a person too. And that's something that Bhakti is very, very clear about, that God's a personal being. So anyway, okay. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hare Krishna. Bye.